Three Blind Mice and Other Stories was first published in the United States in 1950. This collection itself has never been published in the UK. And the reason for that is because of the title story, Three Blind Mice, which was turned into a successful play on the West End called The Mousetrap. The name was changed because at the time there was another play by the same name. So Christie got the idea from her son-in-law to change the name to The Mousetrap, which is a reference to Hamlet. That's the play that he sets up at the at Elsinore. So, and her stipulation was that this short story could never be published in the UK while The Mousetrap was running. Little did Christie know that The Mousetrap would become the longest continuously running play in theater history. So basically, unless for some unknown reason the play ends, this story will never be published in the UK. Now, the short story itself is based on a radio play that Christie wrote to commemorate the 80th birthday, I think, of the Queen Mother at the time, and it was very successful. Then it was suggested to her to write a short story. The stories between the radio play, the short story, and the stage play remain fairly consistent. The only difference I could detect, now I haven't read the radio play, so I can't really comment on that, but the only difference I detected between the short story and the play is the inclusion of the character of Miss Casewell, who is in the play but does not appear in the short story. This is a story that's based loosely on a real event concerning some children by the name of O'Neill. They were children who were put into foster care during the wartime, and the police were called to the farm one day where the boys were staying, and one of the boys was complaining of chest pains, and he'd obviously been beaten and hit in the chest. The children had septic ulcers, were malnourished, were basically just living under the most horrendous conditions possible. And this story kind of became the germ of Three Blind Mice, which is kind of a retributive story. It all begins with a woman named Mrs. Maureen Lyon, who's murdered at her home in London, and pinned to her is a note that says, "This is the first." Nearby, near the scene of the crime, a notebook is found that has written in it the nursery rhyme Three Blind Mice, and it has the address of Mrs. Lyon, and it also has the address of a country home called Monkswell Manor. Monkswell Manor is owned by Molly and Giles, who have decided to open it up as a guest house and are expecting their first visitors that weekend. They're also unlucky enough to have their first weekend occasioned by a snowstorm, a large snowstorm that's coming in. Basically, this is like a locked room mystery because the snow cuts everyone off. So we have some very strange guests. We have Christopher Wren, who's a young, artistic, maybe slightly mad type of character. He says he's named after the famous architect and that he is a budding young architect himself. We have Mr. Paravicini, who is an Italian who wears makeup and might be older than he's supposed to be, or younger. Molly doesn't trust him from the get-go, and his car overturned in a snowdrift, and so he's come in the middle of the night. We have Mrs. Boyle. Mrs. Boyle is kind of a stout, unpleasant woman who just makes her displeasure known to everyone. And then we have Major Metcalf, who is kind of a older gentleman but very strong and active, who is also staying at the house. Giles is a little confused by how active this older gentleman is. Molly and Giles are really green, and so they don't really know each other very well. They've only been married a year. They got married after knowing each other for 2 weeks. They don't know how to run a guest house. They have all of these problems coming in. They're cut off. The phone lines get cut. They're not sure they'll have enough food. They're running low on fuel to keep the house heated. So it's kind of just a big mess. And then they get a call, this is before the phone lines get cut, that a police inspector is coming. He arrives on skis, comes through the window, and tells them that he's there to protect them because of this note that was found that Monkswell Manor was referenced on. Sure enough, within a matter of hours, Mrs. Boyle is found dead, strangled, and we find out that she and Mrs. Lyons were connected with this this story of neglect, about these children who are neglected. So Trotter is there trying to reconstruct the crime. He does, and the murderer is revealed. I don't think the story works quite as well as a short story as it does a stage play, and one of the main reasons is because the character of Miss Casewell, who is included in the stage play, adds a deeper dimension to it. So I think, as far as other works by Christie that this is similar to, for certainly any of the nursery rhyme themed murder mysteries that she wrote. Also the Sittaford mystery, which also takes place during a snowstorm and involves a pair of skis. We do, the title is kind of an interesting title. We have the Three Blind Mice, which stands for the three children on this farm who are so mistreated by this unpleasant woman, but we also have the three victims who become kind of mice in this cat and mouse type game that the murderer is playing. It's pretty clever. Again, I think it works better as a stage play. I give the short story about a 3.5 out of 5.